This week I used Mayer's Multimedia Principles alongside of 2 additional resources from Pitt Online and Waterbear Learning to evaluate a learning object on running records for new readers. I wanted to find something that was aimed at undergraduate students, as this is going to be my primary audience for some learning objects that I intend to build in the future. Just to give you some quick context, the method of running records is a practice that is used to determine exactly how a student is reading. And so if an educator is working one-on-one with a childhood learner or a new reader that's facing some challenges, this is a great way to analyze exactly where those challenges lie. I really like this drill and practice example I found on Captivate Community Portal and its overall layout. Right off the bat, we see that the 3 buttons on the left-hand side of the screen are in a clear, large font. They're brightly outlined and highlight when you hover over them. This is in line with Mayer's signaling principle. It's intuitive and it lets the target audience know that when you click on one of these options, it will take you to the next part of the activity. When we click play on the video on the right-hand side of the screen, we're greeted by an avatar of the professor for the class. They narrate what this video is and include an overview of all of the sections. Let's take a look.
As you've learned, an informal reading inventory, or an IRI, is a powerful diagnostic tool. It helps us assess students' performance and growth in word recognition, fluency, and comprehension by creating running records of oral reading.
And here I'll fast forward to the actual instruction that's given a little bit later on in the video.
Entitled Running Records Activity. When you are ready to observe and practice this process, click on the Interactive Running Records Activity module to begin. The activity is divided in 3 parts. First, you will observe as I code running records while a student reads. Second, we will code a passage together.
I was a little bit torn about whether or not this was in line with the coherence principle from Mayer. Additionally, it also might not be in line with the image principle, in which we should be directed to where our attention should fall on the screen, rather than looking at a talking head. As we know from these principles, good design avoids anything that might be distracting. And in this video, we have the avatar of the teacher who's talking, and that could distract from looking around the actual screen. The music in the background is friendly, it's upbeat, and it's engaging. But the question is it actually necessary? As we already know, Mayer's principles are not so much of the constructivist mindset, and it seems that the creator of this module is kind of leaning more so in that direction. I'm curious as to what you think. If you reply to my evaluation this week, let me know. Do you think that this video of the avatar with the music in the background adds to the overall presentation, or does it take away from its efficacy? What this video does subscribe to, however, is the redundancy principle. This essentially means that we learn better with narration and graphics as opposed to narration, graphics, and text. What we have here is this friendly, warm, welcoming voice telling us what we're about to learn and giving us an overview of how we will be guided through the learning object. I'm going to jump to the next slide so I can talk a little bit about the pre-training principle, but before I do that, I just want to note that the linked PDFs in this slide are currently broken. And I assume that's because this has probably been up on the Captivate community site for quite some time. But if I was going to be really picky, I would say that these links need to be fixed so that the target audience can have the proper pre-training. So when we go ahead and click on the I Do button, it brings us to the next screen. And on the upper left-hand side of the screen, it's got a video of a student reading, and then we see directions brightly repeated below. On the right-hand side of the screen, we see a page of the text that the student is reading, and as we go along, we see the records running technique in action. I'll press play so you can get an idea of what this looks like.
I like to walk my dog Spot. We walk in the sidewalk and we watch out for cars. We often pass friends walking to one day. Spot was a gray squirrel running across the road.
So here we're able to get an idea of how we as the potential literacy instructor can track students as they read. I think this design is really elegant and really straight to the point. Once again, we have the video of the student reading on the side, and so again, this could be construed as not being in line with the coherence principle. However, if you're an actual literacy instructor, you're going to be in a room with a new reader who you'll need to be face-to-face with, so this is great practice. The section of the learning object is also in line with the pre-training principle. You'll see that there's a linked PDF on the previous page that should have some additional information about the various symbols that one would use if they were running records. However, it's broken. What I think might have been better is if there had been one more slide prior to this one that went through the various symbols and what they mean. Additionally, we see the principle of modality in action here. This means that humans learn best from visuals and spoken words rather than visuals and printed words. So here we have a visual of a new reader, and then we also have the visual of the text alongside of the reader speaking the words. Again, this is an interesting project because if we were being really analytical, it could be construed that the printed words on the right-hand side of the screen might be distracting. However, they're actually necessary for the learning object. There's also not a lot of text on this page aside from that, so it's not overwhelming. I also want to point out that segmentation is really clear in this learning object. People are able to move backwards and forwards of their own avail and repeat things if they need to. So next we'll head to the engaging with skill, the we do portion, where we are able to work alongside the instructor. And so you'll see here that if the learner answers correctly, a happy chime sound plays. And then if the learner answers incorrectly, a less affirming kind of thud sound plays.
Kat and Trayvon were walking to their garden. Look at the blueberry bushes, said Kat. Soon berries will be ready to eat. The bird bath is dirty, answered Trevon. We should not clean it so the birds will visit the garden. The children cleaned and replaced the bird bath and pulled the weeds.
You might have also noticed that extra bit of signaling with the try again call out if you answer incorrectly repeatedly. Two of the principles I haven't covered yet are personalization and voice. I think they're pretty obvious. We see how the creator uses their own voice to direct the learner. It's warm and very receptive, and I think that's really in line with what a classroom full of new learners should be. When we get into these slides of the new readers going through the text to the best of their ability, I think this adds another level. If we just had the creator going through and reading examples of oral miscues here and there, I don't think it would be as effective. With the children's voices, we can really hear what sections they stumble over and which sections they feel confident in, and are therefore able to develop empathy within the framework. Even if they're not correct, we're able to hear that they're confident, and we can therefore use that to motivate them. I'd just like to point out that the temporal contiguity is really good with the drag and drop here. So we go to the independent practice, and we are cued to download the running record activity sheet, but it's unavailable. This is something that I wish had been placed at the beginning of the presentation, this suggested method for recording the miscues. If we had known what to look out for right from the beginning, it would have been a lot easier to proceed with the other activities. So let's listen to a little bit of this video and we can kind of hear what we should be looking out for.
The Hungry Bear. The Busy bees had been making honey all day. The night was cool and damp.
This learning object overall feels pretty inclusive. We see both boys and girls, as well as children of multiple races. One thing that I might think about if I was the creator of this module and was going to make some changes would perhaps be including an adult reader. As we know, not all new readers are children, and not all new adult readers have English as their first language. I had a really great time putting this together this week, and I look forward to your replies.